Bright red carpets, neatly decorated booths, impressive displays, and rows of products. At first glance, the scene looks grand and professional. But in reality, the venue is eerily quiet, with only a handful of visitors. Exhibitors, bored out of their minds, pass the time on their phones. Does this scene sound familiar? Yes, it's the infamous death halls of Chinese companies' overseas exhibitions. Now they've appeared in Uzbekistan. From November 21st to 23rd, the first Beauty World Central Asia exhibition was held at a convention center on the outskirts of Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Despite claims from the organizers that it was an international event featuring companies from Japan, Korea, Europe, and the United States, the exhibition floor felt like a Chinese trade fair. Reports suggest that 90% of the exhibitors were Chinese. While the event was lackluster in attendance, Chinese third-party event organizers heavily promoted it on platforms like Xiaohongshu, claiming the exhibition was a huge success and that Chinese companies made significant gains. Their goal? To lure more Chinese businesses into signing up for next year's event. However, some Chinese business owners who attended couldn't stand the deception. They shared videos showing the empty exhibition halls to warn others. One blogger wrote, "I expected the first beauty exhibition to have low foot traffic, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. I treated it as a market exploration trip to Uzbekistan, but when I saw third-party organizers bragging about the huge success and even editing footage from a neighboring tourism fair to fake the crowd scenes, I couldn't stay quiet. Why do we keep deceiving our own people?" The blogger also criticized the poor organization of the event. The exhibits only arrived on the morning of the opening day. The venue was far from the city center, over half an hour by car, and the exhibition hall was small and shared with a tourism fair. The tourism fair provided some foot traffic, but these were casual visitors interested in free samples, not potential buyers. Many exhibitors spent their days on their phones, and some packed up and left after the first day. The blogger concluded, "Doing business is tough, but we should still have some integrity." Another attendee shared a similar experience, saying her products were delayed as well. She explained that most Chinese exhibitors signed up for this event as part of a bundle with the Middle East Dubai Beauty Expo. While her company's finished products managed to attract some attention, companies selling packaged materials were left with empty booths. Uzbekistan has virtually no manufacturing industry. She said tens of thousands of yuan wasted on booth fees alone, not to mention the mandatory group tour fees charged by the organizers. She warned others to stay clear of such events, calling the exhibition a trap. "Everyone's money is hard-earned. Don't waste it on these scams," she wrote. A similar scene unfolded 2,000 kilometers away in Astana, Kazakhstan. From November 21st to 23rd, the 2024 Kazakhstan Kitchenware and Household Goods Expo was held at the Astana International Exhibition Center. Video shared by Chinese exhibitors showed an empty hall, with row after row of unattended booths. Mr. Li, a business owner from Guangdong, said, "We brought our latest kitchenware products, hoping to break into the Central Asian market. But after 3 days, we didn't see a single serious buyer. We just chatted with other exhibitors to pass the time. Everyone was in the same boat." Exhibitors staring at other exhibitors, both on the verge of tears. This summed up the experience. These eerily similar outcomes in two exhibitions raise important questions. Why are so many Chinese companies willing to spend significant money to attend such events? And how are these exhibition organizers pulling off these scams? To answer these questions, we need to dive deeper into the challenges Chinese companies face today and the reality of entering the Central Asian market. In recent years, competition in the Chinese domestic market has intensified, and overproduction has become a serious issue. From textiles and electronics to household goods and industrial equipment, many industries are struggling with excessive competition. Price wars are everywhere, and profit margins have been squeezed to almost nothing. In this environment, many companies have looked abroad, hoping to find new market opportunities by going global. Exhibitions, as a direct way to showcase products and brands, have become a key strategy for Chinese companies to secure international orders. This trend has been further fueled by government support and incentives for companies expanding overseas, making participation in international exhibitions particularly appealing over the past 2 years. However, due to a lack of market knowledge, many Chinese companies, especially those new to international markets, rely heavily on third-party exhibition organizers to handle arrangements. Unfortunately, these organizers, often government-approved, may prioritize their own profits over real results. As long as more companies join in, these organizers earn more, regardless of actual outcomes. One common feature of these organized exhibitions is that all Chinese companies are grouped together, with identical booth designs that lack individuality. Officials may think this unified style reflects China's grandeur and is easier to manage, but in reality, it's counterproductive. Chinese products already face a poor reputation globally, and isolating Chinese companies from international exhibitors further reduces visitor interest. The result is often poor outcomes for the exhibitors. For instance, at the Munich Electronics Expo in Germany, over 1,000 Chinese companies participated. However, more than 300 of them were grouped into the remote C6 hall, where there was little to no visitor traffic. Exhibitors refer to it as the Death Hall. This time, the Central Asia Beauty Expo followed the same pattern, and was once again the result of being bundled and sold by the exhibition companies. The main reason is that Chinese beauty companies wanted to participate in the Beauty World Middle East exhibition, which will be held in the UAE in October. The Dubai Beauty Expo is the largest international trade fair in the Middle East for beauty and hair products, perfumes, cosmetics, and professional beauty equipment. It's also one of the top 3 exhibitions globally. Many Chinese companies have high hopes for this event, hoping to use it as an opportunity to expand into the Middle Eastern market. Some exhibition companies have recognized this and decided to bundle it with the newly launched Central Asia Beauty Expo. However, many companies have realized that not only does Central Asia Beauty Expo end up being a big disappointment, but the highly anticipated Dubai Beauty Expo also did not meet expectations. One participant at the Dubai Beauty Expo said, "The event just wrapped up, and my biggest impression is that there were way too many Korean products. Korean brands are dominating here. You can see that Korean pop culture, like dramas and K-pop, is widely accepted in the Middle East, which has helped Korean beauty products thrive. Japan sells anime, while Korea sells attractive stars and compelling stories. But what is China selling in the Middle East? Without a strong cultural presence, it's hard to make an impression. China's exhibition area was tucked into a corner. If I hadn't deliberately walked there, I wouldn't have even noticed it." The booths featured no recognizable Chinese brands, just custom-made factory products using the same old strategies. It's disappointing and a missed opportunity. As this exhibitor pointed out, China's beauty industry lacks internationally recognized brands. Larger companies mainly focus on manufacturing for other brands, while smaller self-created brands struggle with low visibility. Even mid-sized Chinese brands are collapsing under the pressure of declining consumer spending, with many shutting down or operating below capacity due to a lack of orders. Data shows that in 2024, the capacity utilization rate of China's cosmetics industry is below 60%. Factories in the packaging sector, which is part of the cosmetics supply chain, are also operating at reduced capacity, with some being forced to shut down. Profit margins in light industries have dropped below 3%, leading many small and medium-sized businesses to adopt zero-profit or even negative profit strategies just to survive. The Chinese beauty industry appears to be going through an unprecedented downturn. Analysts point to multiple factors behind this crisis, including overcompetition within the industry, reduced capital investment, price cuts by major brands, and structural investments in the market. Faced with these challenges, many beauty companies are looking overseas for new opportunities. They frequently participate in international trade shows, but these efforts often yield little success, and worse, leave them vulnerable to exploitation by exhibition organizers. The recent Beauty World Central Asia Expo in Uzbekistan is a prime example. Although 90% of the exhibitors were Chinese, it also reflects the Chinese government's strategic focus on the Central Asian market. A review of exhibition data shows that Central Asia hosts numerous trade shows, such as those for construction materials and household goods, with Chinese companies dominating participation. In many cases, it's fair to say that Chinese companies are keeping the Central Asian trade show market afloat. At first glance, Central Asian economies appear underdeveloped, resembling China in the 1990s, which makes the region seem like a land of untapped potential. However, the reality is that these countries have limited purchasing power and lack industrial infrastructure. For example, Uzbekistan, the host of the recent Beauty Expo, has virtually no manufacturing base. Many packaging products displayed at the expo fail to find buyers, highlighting the limited effectiveness of such events. Central Asia is a key node in President Xi Jinping's Belt and Road Initiative. The initiative was first announced in September 2013 during Xi's visit to Kazakhstan, where he delivered a speech at Nazarbayev University. A Kazakh sociologist said, "In the past, we rarely saw Chinese people here. Now, Chinese goods, projects, and investments are everywhere." This transformation isn't limited to Kazakhstan. It's visible across the entire Central Asian region. Under the Belt and Road Initiative, China's influence in Central Asia is pervasive. Chinese investments dominate Central Asia's infrastructure development, including oil and gas pipelines, railways, highways, power stations, and telecommunications networks. These projects are reshaping the region's infrastructure landscape. China has become the largest trading partner for Central Asian countries. From household goods and construction materials to electronics and machinery, Chinese products flood the markets of these nations. Chinese banks and financial institutions are also expanding into Central Asia, offering loans and financial services. While these loans appear generous, they're creating new debt traps for the recipient countries. Many Central Asian nations are now burdened with significant debt owed to China. China is heavily promoting its culture in the region by establishing Confucius Institutes, offering Chinese language education, and exporting cultural content. While these initiatives appear to be about cultural exchange, they're really fostering cultural dependency. An educator in Kyrgyzstan said, "Many young people here are learning Chinese because they believe it's the only way to secure a good job. However, this growing Chinese influence is also causing identity crises among the younger generation." The educator added, "We worry that our cultural traditions will gradually disappear." This extensive influence is generating serious negative consequences. Central Asian countries are becoming raw material suppliers and dumping grounds for Chinese goods. This suppresses local industry and distorts their economic structures. Many Belt and Road infrastructure projects, while impressive on the surface, do not align with local development needs. Instead, they have become significant debt burdens, straining the finances of Central Asian nations. The influx of Chinese capital has also exacerbated corruption in these countries. Just as with other Belt and Road projects worldwide, the primary beneficiaries are not ordinary citizens, but the ruling elite. The rapid expansion of Chinese projects in Central Asia is also leading to growing social tensions. Local residents often complain about Chinese-led projects, including factories, which rarely hire local workers and instead rely on Chinese expatriates. This creates resentment as it does little to address local unemployment. Retired Indiana University professor of Central Eurasian Studies, William Fairman, noted that the region harbors deep-seated concerns about China's influence, particularly fears that China could use its massive population to overwhelm the sparsely populated region. Additionally, Chinese companies often lack respect for local customs and culture, which fuels public dissatisfaction. In some areas, anti-China protests have already taken place. Environmental damage is another significant issue. Chinese investments, particularly in mining projects, frequently disregard environmental regulations, leading to ecological degradation. A Central Asia expert observed, "China's expansion in the region has been too fast and too aggressive. This reckless approach is bound to spark backlash. We're already seeing warning signs. If adjustments aren't made, China's long-term interests in Central Asia could be at risk." China's economic influence in Central Asia is gradually transforming into political leverage, causing unease among the region's nations. One Central Asian diplomat admitted privately, "We don't want to choose sides between major powers, but the reality is that we're becoming increasingly dependent on China." The geopolitical dimension of the situation is particularly significant. Central Asia has traditionally been Russia's sphere of influence, and China's rapid infiltration has raised alarms in Moscow. Although China and Russia maintain outwardly friendly relations, their rivalry in Central Asia is ongoing. Russia is countering China's influence through various measures, such as reinforcing its military presence, promoting the Eurasian Economic Union, and strengthening cultural ties. This geopolitical complexity directly impacts the business environment for Chinese companies operating in Central Asia. On one hand, they face inefficiencies and policy instability from local governments. On the other hand, they must navigate overt and covert restrictions imposed by Russia. Looking ahead, the Central Asian market is likely to become even more complicated. Following the war in Ukraine, Russia will undoubtedly focus more on consolidating its influence in its traditional strongholds. If Chinese companies fail to recognize this reality, they risk further losses in the region's geopolitical turmoil. Currently, many Chinese companies, encouraged and supported by government initiatives, are aggressively entering the Central Asian market. These companies appear to be thriving, benefiting from preferential policies and funding. In reality, they are mere pawns in a larger geopolitical game. While the government talks about going global, its underlying motives are rooted in political ambition. In this carefully crafted geopolitical strategy, Central Asia has become a battleground for power expansion. Under the guise of economic cooperation, the Chinese government pushes companies to the front lines, treating them as expendable pieces and easily discarded when no longer useful. For Chinese businesses, Central Asia might seem like a land of opportunity, but it is riddled with hidden traps. Companies struggle in this challenging cross-border business environment, facing a complex political landscape, corruption risks, and cultural clashes. Yet these challenges are of little concern to the government, whose strategic interests always outweigh the survival and growth of individual companies. This reflects the ruthless logic of China's outward expansion, using businesses as political pawns to advance its global agenda, with little regard for the real interests or sustainability of those enterprises.